This is wildlife, and today I'll show you the most dangerous, gigantic, and venomous snakes in the world. You'll find out what animals they prey on and what animals can stand up to them. Let's go! It's it, not the anaconda. It's the reticulated python that's the longest snake of our time. Individuals of this species can grow up to 23 feet in length and weigh more than 265 pounds. To go to the native lands of this creeping creature in order to take a couple of photos is a bad idea. At the very least, you're unlikely to find a reticulated python so easily. It has an impressive camouflage, as well as the ability to move silently, like a lynx. In general, it's possible to notice a reticulated python only when it wants itself. It usually shows itself during attacks. The giant monitors the environment with thermosensitive pits so that it sees everything extremely clearly at night. This skill is extremely important in the life of the reticulated python. Because of its royal size, the snake needs to eat constantly. It seems that the very legendary Snake video game was based on this particular reptile. If a reticulated python doesn't eat someone every day or doesn't eat large prey regularly, it'll starve to death. At first, newborn pythons, which are 2 feet long, can swallow only frogs and some arthropods. But once they're 3.2 feet long, the young snake discovers a new ability – climbing. Taking advantage of their mobility, the snakes add rodents and bats to their diet, which they snatch right in flight. At the next level, when the reticulated python reaches 10 feet in length, it learns to swim and begins to fight crocodiles as well as various snakes. When it passes this threshold, the reticulated python reaches the highest level of existence. It begins to eat absolutely everyone indiscriminately. The larger the prey, the better. Even a gorilla, if it finds itself in front of this snake, will not be able to do anything to it and will become its lunch, at least partially. Although the probability of a reticulated python reaching its maximum size is not so great, the situation changes because of the huge number of these individuals. The fact is that females can lay as many as 100 eggs at a time. Out of hundreds of snakes, a few will certainly reach gigantic size, and they'll scare the world around them for the rest of their lives. Giant anaconda. And this is probably the only snake that can compete with a reticulated python in terms of size. The fact is that people constantly assure others that they saw some kind of abnormal individual in the Amazon jungle. Nevertheless, although there are really a lot of such stories, they don't have any sense. People still cannot prove the existence of at least 26-foot individuals, let alone 39 feet ones or more. Crocodiles, lions, any rodents, any animal which finds itself in front of a hungry anaconda can become tasty prey for it. Even the word anaconda in Tamil means elephant killer, which alludes to the ability to kill even the largest animals. What's also surprising is that with such incredible ambitions, the anaconda has absolutely no venom. It has a slightly different hunting style. First, it waits for the right moment, then it makes a lightning lunge and accompanies it with a tenacious grip using its razor-sharp teeth. Also, the grip of the giant anaconda is extremely unpleasant due to the fact that it has a bent inward shape of its teeth. This is done by nature to make it almost impossible for giant anaconda prey to get out of its mouth if it grabs it once. As soon as the prey is paralyzed by the jaws of the anaconda, the snake begins to wrap it with itself and squeeze it as hard as it can until the heart of the prey stops beating. The locals are so frightened by these snakes that they go crazy and tell tourists about the possibility of anacondas turning into humans. By the way, which snake do you think would win the fight, the reticulated python or the anaconda? Share your thoughts in the comments. You know, after hearing about the giant anaconda and the reticulated python, one would think there wouldn't be any stronger and scarier than them. But then this snake appears, the King Cobra, the largest venomous snake in the world, the main taipan. While we're on the subject of venom, it would be odd not to mention the inland taipan. This is exactly the kind of creature at the sight of which it's worth pretending to be dead, so as not to be so in a matter of seconds. The cold-blooded gaze of this reptile gives people chills even in hot deserts, and its one single bite will hit 100 people at once. I must say right away, in order not to encounter this horror in the flesh, it's necessary to avoid such a continent as Australia. The inland taipan settled in the deserts and scared all the locals. A 6.5-foot yellow taipan merging with sand is like a needle in a haystack, which is almost impossible to find. But at the same time, it can carry a great danger. Why is this taipan dangerous? Well, at the very least, because it's the most venomous land snake in the world. One dose of its venom is enough to knock 250,000 mice off their feet, or 100 people, as I said. As scientists say, when encountering this taipan and being bitten by it, one must administer an antidote within minutes, because otherwise the victim's heart will stop beating forever within half an hour. As is usually the case, the enormous power of the living creature doesn't mean that it slithers around in the wild looking for someone to finish it off. The inland taipan, on the contrary, leads a quiet life away from settlements, using venom only in emergencies. And that's a good thing. Eastern brown snake. Next, we have another inhabitant of Australia. It's smaller than the other creeping creatures in today's episode, but no less dangerous. This is the second most venomous land snake, which, although inferior to the inland taipan, at the same time overtakes it in terms of number of victims. The basis of the aggressor's diet is frogs and chicks, as well as rodents of all kinds. Since all these creatures usually live near humans and their farms, an encounter of an eastern brown snake with people is not something rare. If you think it'll be enough to just close all the doors and windows, you're wrong. This snake has a movable head that allows it to squeeze through any crevice to get into the house. It also hunts during the day, which increases the risk of attacking humans. One wrong move and the snake goes into fighting mode. It curls into a figure 8 so that the power of its blow is maximum. Like the King Cobra, it raises its head and opens its mouth. And then there's a quick lunge in the direction of the offender. Usually, the snake uses venom only for its intended purpose, for the sake of hunting. But sometimes it can get so angry or frightened that it will use it even as self-defense. If the victim's a human, it'll be bad. The only option to be saved is to use an antidote. The chances of being rescued in this case are about 50-50. The venom of the eastern brown snake is a cocktail of neurotoxins and cardiotoxins. The bite provokes convulsions, dizziness, kidney failure, cardiac arrest, extensive internal bleeding, and paralysis. The body just stops functioning. Yellow-bellied sea snake. And this, let's be objective, is the most beautiful of today's snakes. But in spite of this, it's still extremely dangerous. Speaking of its main difference among other snakes, it's worth saying that it lives in the sea. These snakes hunt during the daytime, so it's quite possible to encounter them. Usually they never attack people unless they get too close to them. However, the most interesting thing is inside the snake. It's clear that a venomous snake can finish off a person, but here it's curious how exactly this happens. The venom of the yellow-bellied sea snake is similar to that of the King Cobra, but much more concentrated and toxic. It affects the respiratory system and can cause paralysis. Worst of all, this venom attacks all muscles. As soon as the victim decides to move, they'll feel the full range of pain. Even the antidote doesn't help much. The pain can continue even a month after the antidote's been administered. Cobra versus eagle. In this video, a young eagle flew on the land to find some food. Usually, it's satisfied with absolutely everything, including snakes. But this time, the opponent in the person of a cobra didn't plan to become someone's dinner at all. On the contrary, the snake itself started to hunt for the eagle and used all its hunting skills. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the hunt failed, and the feathered creature dodged the cobra's attacks. But the reptile certainly managed to make it nervous. Cunning plan. If you think snakes can only attack head-on, as it happened in the last video, you don't know much about them. For example, most creeping creatures have amazing camouflage. It allows them to blend into the terrain and become a kind of a stone against the road. Even people during a walk couldn't distinguish a snake from an ordinary cobblestone, let alone animals. Sometimes these creatures can go even further and not only pretend to be a rock, but also use their own tail in their cunning plan, which looks like a small insect. The creeping creatures use it to lure birds, and as soon as they try to grab the fake insect, the snakes make a sharp lunge and deal with their prey in one bite. Birds have no chance to get up out of such a grip. Now I suggest you watch a cool video about how the gaboon viper shows itself in action. If you didn't know, this is one of the most dangerous snakes on the planet, which lives in Africa. Despite the fact that it's insanely dangerous and can finish off even an adult person with just one bite, some local tribes still consider it as something sacred and protect it in every way. Well, let's finally watch it hunt. The gaboon viper, or the gaboon adder, which venom contains fast-acting toxins, is carnivorous like all snakes. Consequently, the only way it can feed itself is by hunting other living creatures. In general, its diet includes all small, warm-blooded creatures that live in Africa. Moreover, particularly large representatives of the species can take down a dwarf antelope or even a wild cat. It's important to note that the gaboon viper is not the most skilled hunter. Because of its large size and heavy weight, it can't move fast enough to attack its prey from afar. All that's left is for it to ambush them. It's already learned this tactic very well. Thanks to its coloring, the snake can merge with fallen leaves or pretend to be an ordinary log. And when the unsuspecting prey approaches its trap, it'll take the prey with one sharp lunge. To be more precise, with this very lunge, the gaboon viper will inject a high dose of venom into the body of the prey, which will start working in less than a few minutes. And even if the prey decides to run somewhere after the bite, it will not be able to leave. The gaboon viper will follow it and wait until it's completely weakened. Underwater hunter. The olive sea snake is a creature that still breathes air, except that because of evolution and adaptation to the underwater environment, it's learned to spend a long time without oxygen. The olive sea snake has very large lungs, which makes it able to hold its breath for an hour or even longer. Hunting underwater is quite easy for it. No matter how you look at it, it's one of the most venomous snakes on our planet. The snake's small and hollow teeth help it inject the toxin. Neurotoxins destroy nerve signals, while mycotoxins destroy muscle tissue. Together, they lead to respiratory paralysis and rapid death. In addition, the olive sea snake uses its venom to digest its prey, which it finds at depths of up to 130 feet. But as a rule, it stalks its future prey in shallow water among coral reefs. When hunting, the snake also uses a secret weapon, a group of light-sensitive nerve cells located on its tail that pick up reflections on fish scales. It's like eyes on either side of its 6.5-foot-long body. One hears about this underwater hunter and realizes how strong and dangerous it is. The only good thing is that the olive sea snake doesn't attack humans. King Cobra. The King Cobra is one of the key links in the history of dangerous snakes. It's the only one of its kind that often chooses to hunt congener snakes. It's an excellent tree climber and no less impressive swimmer, so none of the snakes can get away from it. It's also funny that even very venomous snakes can be killed by the King Cobra. Toxins in their blood don't scare the King Cobra at all. It's resistant to them. Moreover, its venom is rarely worse than that of the prey. In addition, it can inject so much of it that even an adult can be killed by such a dose. There are cases in history when even Indian elephants died from this bite. In general, snakes are usually neutral to people and only show aggression if they feel threatened. But it's been repeatedly reported about the King Cobra that it picks a fight itself and scares people, chasing them for no reason. Spitting cobra. The name speaks for itself. This cobra shoots venom at an opponent at a distance of up to 6 feet and is able to hit the target with a diameter of up to 0.7 inches. In general, the spitting cobra clearly has no problems with marksmanship and never had. Whether it's hunting during the day or a night outing, in any case, it'll hit the target perfectly. But don't rush to think that such a cobra can finish off a prey with a single hit of venom on its body. It won't be enough. The venom cannot penetrate through the skin, but it's very dangerous if it gets on the mucous membrane. Therefore, the main purpose of these snakes is the eyes. With an accurate shoot, a prey can completely lose its sight. Well, if the cobra succeeds, you know there's very little chance for survival. Swimming snake. In general, it's quite strange to call this or that snake swimming. The fact is that every snake in the world is capable of it. They can all swim. However, some can do it better, and others do it a little worse. In any case, I suggest we look at what a real snake, which lives underwater most of the time, can do. It took a deep breath on land and returned to its native habitat. Using its locators, the reptile sensed its prey several tens of meters away and immediately rushed towards it. The snake was at the fish's heels, and as soon as the prey was nearby, it grabbed it in one deft jerk. It was no longer possible for the fish to break free. Its head and a large part of its body had already been swallowed, and given the fact that snakes' teeth have an unusual tilt, getting out of such deadly jaws is almost unrealistic. Teamwork. Judging from the Today stories, we can conclude that snakes are loners in terms of hunting. They're constantly trying to catch their prey without anyone else's help. It's easier for them that way, and they don't have to share a prey with anyone. In fact, however, there are creeping creatures that work as a team. For example, here one of the snakes slithered toward a strange object, either alive or not at all. In fact, the object was alive. It was an iguana. The lizard knew that as soon as it moved, it would provoke the reptiles, so it made a decision to stand still, just in case it got lucky. However, at some point, the snake slithered so close to the snakes let the iguana out of their grip and let it escape. Certainly, there were many chances to catch it, and their teamwork deserves respect. It just happens sometimes that one is a little luckier than the other. And everyone who will watch this episode to the end will be even luckier. After all, they'll find out why snakes are agile hunters, as well as what their main methods of catching prey are. Why are snakes agile and smart hunters? In hunting, the creeping creatures are primarily aided by their sense of smell. Their eyes are also sensitive to any movement. They lack moving eyelids, never close or blink. In addition, these natural-born killers have a perfect musculoskeletal system, which allows even the largest individuals to climb trees and hunt there. The snake's body is remarkably flexible due to the special structure of its skeleton. The spine of these creatures is very long and has a large number of vertebrae, usually from 200 to 450. Also, the body of the snake is equipped with a large number of muscles located between the ribs and along the back. This gives them considerable strength and the ability to make movements in different directions. The main methods of snake hunting. The creeping creatures have always differed among themselves in terms of hunting methods. About a quarter of all species use venom to kill their prey. These are the well-known vipers, cobras, African black mambas, and so on. Venomous snakes have both a lot of small teeth, with which they can easily hold the prey in the mouth and not let it go anywhere, and several long, sharp teeth that serve as conductors for venom. For example, in vipers, these long teeth can fold when not needed, adjacent to the palate. There are also those among the venomous snakes that shoot venom from a distance. This, too, is a useful skill, as it allows a snake to deprive the prey of sight and finish it off faster without expending additional resources. Today, you've already seen such spinning reptiles. And of course, there are non-venomous snakes in the wild. They just swallow smaller prey in one sitting. For example, pythons do it. As for the larger prey, they first strangle it, squeezing the prey until it crunches, and only then swallow it. Python versus crocodile. You may be surprised, but battles between these living creatures in the wild are not uncommon. For a crocodile, a snake can be an easy and tasty prey. But sometimes a snake doesn't mind eating a large reptile from warm countries either. In this video, which was shot by eyewitnesses, the main role was played by a giant albino python. Usually, I'm kindly envious of creatures with such an interesting color feature, but if I were this snake, I wouldn't be happy. Seems to me that this coloration makes it much more conspicuous and spoils its camouflage. However, the creeping creature proves me otherwise and easily catches the crocodile in its tenacious grip. The video shows the poor guy twitching its limb, but all its attempts to get out are in vain. At that moment, the crocodile was already a quarter of its body inside the snake, which meant there was no chance of escape. The only thing it had to hope for was that someone would come and scare the snake. In case you didn't know, when some predator shows up, snakes often spit out their prey in order to become more agile, lighter, and maneuverable. After all, why would you need food when you can become food yourself, right? How do they do it? Such thoughts came to mind as soon as I watched another video starring a snake. On it, the reptile was eating a frog that was still alive. Have you ever wondered how a snake opens its mouth so wide? Maybe it doesn't have any bones. Well, it may seem like there are no bones at all, but in fact, there are a lot of bones. Some snakes have up to 145 pairs of ribs attached to their flexible spine, but that's not even the point. It's all about the remarkable ability of snakes to digest their prey live. Inside their small intestine, the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey begin to break down. Then potent enzymes and acid come into play. The acidity in the snake's stomach exceeds that of humans by about 7 times. Next, what's left over moves to the colon, where it undergoes final digestion. Enzymes break down the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey within a few hours. If we're talking about larger prey, like the crocodile, it may take the snake about a week or even a month to digest it. But snakes don't always hunt small prey. Sometimes their diet includes much larger creatures, such as this deer. Of course, snakes are happy to eat something like this once every 2 weeks, but in practice, it's extremely difficult to catch it because of its large size and high speed. The only chance for the snake to get a deer is either to sneak up on it or to make a sharp lunge, camouflaged somewhere on the road. Let alone poor deer, which spend all their lives running away from someone. Even a kangaroo can be eaten by a snake, and there shouldn't be any question about weaker animals at all. Just look at such a big prey the snake is eating. There's a feeling that a little more and the snake will burst from greed. But somehow, magically, it manages to cram all its prey into its belly. Oh, I wish I could learn this skill and learn how to pack my stuff in a suitcase in the same cool and compact way. Python versus tiger. Gradually, the bar of opponents only raises. One might get the feeling that the next headline will be something like Python versus elephant. But don't worry, the tiger is probably the most dangerous animal that a snake can mess with. The fact is that these big cats are insanely strong fighters in one-on-one combat. They can defeat even a lion because of their solitary lifestyle. The kings of the jungle, on the contrary, always count on team play and attack by the whole pride. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're interested in the confrontation between a giant python and a hungry tiger. At first, it seemed to me that the snake had no chance of winning in such a duel. No matter how you look at it, the tiger will bite through its skin or even tear it to shreds with its sharp claws. However, something clearly went wrong with the big cat. It couldn't beat the python. On the contrary, at some point, the tiger relaxed its guard and fell into the trap of the reptile. The snake wrapped itself around its prey and began to tighten its grip as hard as possible. The reptile tried to deprive the tiger of all its vital forces. It was still a mystery exactly how this story ended, so I suggest you use your imagination and write your version in the comments. Which animal do you think won? Something tells me that the snake knocked the living daylights out of that tiger. The king in action. I think those who are interested in the world of snakes have already guessed which snake I'm going to talk about. Yes, of course you're right, it's the king cobra, the very snake that can feed on other creeping reptiles, including extremely venomous ones. And if 2 such cobras claim one prey at once, then they'll begin to compare their size. The bigger one will take the winnings. The smaller one will have to immediately slither out of sight. It's also said that the king cobra has an excellent memory and is able to distinguish the one who caught it from all other people. So I wouldn't advise you to go looking for it, much less catch it. Otherwise, you'll pull the snake out of its native habitat and it will remind you of that someday. It knows that in the case of snakes, you always have to grab the head, and it did just that. I think the smaller reptile had no chance of escape. Sometimes they need help too. We looked at all kinds of videos, and in each of them the snakes seemed so strong, independent, clever, and agile. There's a feeling that a snake just physically cannot get into any trouble, but in fact this is not the case. For example, in this video, a snake had a fight with a monitor lizard. Even though the second one was small, something didn't work out for the reptile, and it ended up in the tenacious grip of the predator. I think the snake had no chance of escape at all. But then, just like a superhero from the movies, a man came to it. He picked up the fighting creatures and carried them to his side. There, he unhooked them and then dragged them to different corners. The man immediately forgot about the monitor lizard because it was safe and sound, but the snake needed help. To provide it, the rescuers placed the snake in a large jar in a clever and confident way and took it with them for examination. I wonder how surgeries and stuff like that happen in the case of snakes. Are they injected with some kind of a sedative, or maybe people put them in a place where they can't twirl? Write in the comments if you know the answer to this question, or have a cool guess. Remember how in the story about the king cobra I mentioned its incredible memory? It seems to me that other snakes also have a very good memory. The fact is that in the same area where the events from the past story took place, people found some brawlers. They were again a monitor lizard and a snake. And you know what the most interesting thing is? There's a chance that these are exactly the same animals which have already fought with each other. They tracked each other down, grew up, and arranged a rematch. The snake didn't like that it was considered weak and taken for treatment. However, the monitor lizard didn't care. It just wanted to eat. Well, monitor lizards can barely deal with snakes. Tigers are also inferior to them, let alone deer, frogs, and crocodiles. So what animal can deal with these creeping creatures? Turns out that domestic dogs can do it. Our favorite and loyal friends, which will never leave their owner in trouble. Don't you believe me? Then here's the video proof. This video shows a dog desperately defending its home and territory from an extremely venomous and aggressive snake. The fact is that the dog does it very confidently, deftly, and successfully. The snake doesn't have time to recover and focus on the dog as it gets bitten one more time. Can't tell you exactly how this video ended, but something tells me that with such an eagerness, the doggy didn't leave the snake a single chance for survival. This is what I call crawled in the wrong neighborhood. Fight on the road. The authors of the following video were driving somewhere on their way when suddenly someone blocked their way. It wasn't a giant cow or a group of ducklings crossing to the other side. It was a real fight between snakes. The two little ones were fighting as briskly and boldly as if they were 3 times bigger than they really were. You could feel the aggression and confidence in their every move. I mean it. I've never seen such fast and accurate dodges in my life. Maybe only in some movie, though. I wonder if anyone has emerged victorious from this battle, or did they part in peace? What do you think about this? Write in the comments. Is the gecko the main kryptonite of snakes? I don't know about you, but I keep hearing that if there are geckos in or near a house, there simply can't be any snakes in the area. Allegedly, snakes are afraid of them and try to crawl around 100 yards away. Wait, don't rush to buy these lizards for yourself. Turns out that all this was nothing more than a myth. Look at the fight these creatures got into, or rather, what a tangle they got into. It looks worse than wired headphones after they've been in your pocket for a couple of hours. Mongoose versus cobra. Many people know the mongoose for its amazing reaction, but that's where the fun seems to end. But would you think that in India, these animals are incredibly valued for the benefits they provide? They clean up the territory of small rodents that annoy people. And in central India, the mongoose is considered sacred by someone, just like the cow. The squirrel in our video, by all appearances, will worship the mongoose too because it appeared at just the right moment, when the fluffy one was in trouble and couldn't do anything about the strong and large cobra opposite it. If the squirrel had a rather passive style of battle, retreated, and was afraid to do anything, then the mongoose, on the contrary, seemed to show it how to act. It rushed at the snake from the first moments of the battle and took the cobra by surprise with this behavior. The snake was even forced to stand in its classic stance in order to confuse its opponent, at least a little. But as you can see, this did not help it at all. Did you see how skillfully the mongoose dodged its punch? That was fantastic. The mongoose went on the offensive and was punished for it, but it got off only with a minor scare and not a fatal bite, since the cobra's venom is safe for it. In theory, the hungry mongoose could have continued its attack, but the beast finally cooled its ardor and headed back home. Here they go again! Remember how the squirrel just attacked the cobra? It was waiting for it to lunge and then, after a while, trying to do something about it. Well, the mongoose is much more determined in this respect. Look at how the other animal behaved when it encountered the cobra. It simply dodged the first blow and started running, unashamed and unafraid of anyone. As a result, it came down to some kind of chase, taunting the creeping creature, and, as a consequence, a logical victory for the mongoose. Anaconda and caiman. Both of these beasts are famous for their strength in the animal world. One has the cruel grip, which does not forgive mistakes of opponents, and the other can strangle absolutely any opponent because its torso, as if it tends to infinity in terms of length. But one day in Brazil, people came across something unusual. Both of these creatures became hostages of the situation. It's not known which one attacked first, but as a result, they took each other in their grasp. The crocodile grabbed the snake's head with its jaws and was by no means letting it go. The snake, on the other hand, wrapped itself around it, immobilized its limbs, and grabbed its torso a little. In the end, the whole thing turned into a wearing down process. The one which would lose its nerves and finally decide to move and do something will probably lose the fight. By the way, write in the comments, which animal do you think will emerge victorious from this battle? My money's on the crocodile. To be honest, I have no idea how the situation in the following video even became real. The thing is that this happened in some kind of zoo, where the enclosures with animals are fenced and no outsider can enter them. However, the hungry python, which obviously lacked food and attention from the zoo staff, found a loophole and, like in the movies, where they escaped from prison, made a tunnel into the next cell. Knowing the schedule of the guards, it, like a true master of its craft, snuck up to the monkeys unnoticed and pinched one of them by the side. Well, as you can see, this very pinch was fatal for the monkey. No matter how hard the congeners tried to scare off the creeping creatures with their screams, they didn't succeed. It's a pity the animals couldn't have realized that as a whole group, they would have clearly been stronger than one snake. If you see snake battles for the first time and now think that they attack only weak enemies, you're deeply mistaken. They have battles even with each other. So in this video, you can see the battle between the king snake and the rat snake. The latter is a true underdog due to a variety of factors. These include size, dexterity, bite force, and more. Nevertheless, the way the king snake carefully and methodically deals with eating the relative snake is really fascinating. It does it without any effort, just like a real master demonstrates its skills in the fight against the opponent that made a fatal mistake. Truth be told, however, it's also worth noting the rat snake's struggle for life. I thought it had said goodbye to life a long time ago, but this little creature fought until the very end, until 99% of its torso was consumed by the king member of the snakes. I'm sure if the rat snake had faced one of the traps of the movie Saw, it would have definitely shown its will to live to the fullest and stayed alive. By the way, hit the like button if you've also seen at least one movie from the franchise. And you know, that snake certainly had the right tactics. Because when you're clearly weaker than your opponent, spinning around like that and trying to confuse the enemy is the only right thing to do. The eel in the following video was several times smaller than the attacking snake. It had no chance for an equal fight, so at first it pretended to resign itself to death, and then began to twist like the most expensive dancer in the world. The eel wriggled and did something simply impossible, which caused the snake to turn everything into a closer fight. It dragged the animal to itself and tried to grab its head so that it could be eaten. This was exactly the reptile's main mistake. The eel seized the first moment and slipped out of the hunter's grasp. Cobra versus python. The next battle that was caught on camera took place in a wild forest, and the participants were a cobra and a python. Do you see these snakes? The python grabbed the cobra, wrapped itself around its head, and gradually, second by second, tightened its grip. The prey barely moves and tries to cloud the mind of the attacker. And if you suddenly think that a fierce battle between two of the strongest snakes is about to unfold here from second to second, you're wrong. That's exactly the position the snakes will stay in for the whole clip. I don't know how it ended, but if the cobra didn't do anything, it clearly lost this battle. Why are you standing here? That was the question this little creature asked the man who was all alone on the road. I don't know what the cameraman was doing, how he ended up with his camera turned on, or why he chose the tactic of standing still, but all of this combined kinda sealed his fate. I watched the clip and made sure the snake was about to bite him. Basically, it did. The animal was small and harmless, so its bite didn't cause anything but a momentary discomfort. But another time, if I were this guy, I'd just run away from the snake. Put the camera away. Maybe that snake from the last video bit the guy for taking unauthorized pictures? Because as practice shows, snakes don't like that very much. And this angry reptile is another proof of that. Just look at how abruptly and unexpectedly it attacked the camera. You have to admit that it was simply unreal to dodge such a lunge. Realizing the mood of the snake, the man was then already ready for such tricks and methodically dealt with it, picking it up and calming it down a little. By the way, write in the comments, what would you do if you had such an aggressive snake on your property? Would you have hoped that it would leave the territory on its own, or would you have taken everything into your own hands? Personally, I wouldn't want to touch such an evil snake. only if it didn't look as cool as the one I'm going to tell you about. Oh yeah, I'll also tell you about one of the most dangerous representatives of the snake world, so keep watching, it'll be interesting. Green Tree Python. The main cutie of the episode is the green tree python. This colorful snake is a member of the Morelia genus and is found mainly in the tropical rainforests of Papua New Guinea. When young, the body of the green tree python is usually red or yellow, allowing it to hide among the surrounding landscape. The fact is that the first year of their life, these pythons do not live in the forest. They prefer its outskirts, small open areas or meadows covered with tall grass. And when the first year passes and the creeping creature moves into the forest, it adjusts to its environment and changes its color to bright green. Belcher's sea snake. And now I will tell you about one of the most dangerous snakes. If the previous green beauty could easily have a length of more than 5 feet, this reptile is much smaller, 3.5 feet's its limit. These snakes are not aggressive, and divers safely swim near them. They take amazing pictures, get their adrenaline pumping. You ask me, why get your adrenaline pumping if the snake is small and not aggressive? Well, just because it doesn't attack everyone left and right doesn't mean it's weak. It is, by the way, one of the most toxic snakes in the whole world. Just a few milligrams of its venom would be enough to kill over 1,000 adult people. We should thank Mother Nature that in 90% of cases, the Belcher's sea snake bites not injecting its venom in order to simply scare its opponent. What do you think the biggest lizard in the world is capable of? What turtles should you be wary of? And where does the creepiest crocodile on the planet live? I'll show it to you now. Komodo dragon. Even the very name of this creature suggests that it's extremely dangerous. Indeed, how can a dragon be harmless? There's another name for this monster, the Komodo monitor. It's the largest lizard on the planet and also one of the largest reptiles in the world. Komodo dragons can grow up to 13 feet in length and more and weigh over 280 pounds. For this reason, they're dangerous to almost any living creature in their range on the Indonesian islands. Due to the fact that Komodo dragons can be neighbors with humans, they often get into battles with domestic dogs. If there are many dogs, they can stand up to the lizard, but if the dog's alone, it'll likely be finished. The best option for a dog in such a confrontation is simply to run, and one has to run fast because Komodo dragons can reach speeds of up to 12 miles per hour, and yet these dragons are not more interested in dogs. Far more often they encounter goats, for example. Look at how it looks like. In just a few seconds, the Komodo dragon is able to neutralize an enemy and then eat it whole. Same goes for monkeys that have been long afraid of these giant lizards. After all, the primates are powerless in a fight with them. Komodo dragons quickly neutralize monkeys, after which they eat them whole, sometimes even alive. This all looks epic, but such abilities of the Komodo dragon are not surprising. After all, the lizard's very large. Speaking of which, it can also engage in a battle with a larger opponent such as the local buffalo. The buffalo's larger than the lizard, but working even in a small group, Komodo dragons can finish off an adult. However, this rarely happens. Buffaloes know about the strength of Komodo dragons and their venom, so they try not to mess with them. In general, the Komodo dragon can be rightly called an extremely dangerous reptile. Only large crocodiles can pose a threat to them. By the way, which animal would you bet on in such a fight? Write in the comments. Well, we move on to another dangerous reptile, the snake. I'm sure you all know about anacondas, black mambas, rattlesnakes, and so on, but have you ever heard of the saw-scaled viper? If not, I suggest you remember the name as well as the snake's appearance itself. It may not be as well known as the Black Mamba or the King Cobra, but in many ways it's more dangerous. At least because it's considered the deadliest snake on the planet. More people in the world die from its bites each year than from the bites of any other snake. The saw-scaled viper can be called noble. When encountering a person, it doesn't attack them immediately. It gives a person a chance to be saved. At first, the saw-scaled viper begins to make a loud rustling sound. This is it rubbing the jagged rings. Along with this, the saw-scaled viper begins to twist and wriggle. At this moment, it's better to move away, as far away as possible. Otherwise, the saw-scaled viper will attack and bite you. and the consequences will be terrible. The saw-scaled viper's venom can act in different ways. Sometimes it reduces blood clotting and the victim dies of blood loss. And sometimes the venom thickens the blood, turning it into jelly, which also leads to death. Every fifth person bitten by the saw-scaled viper becomes a victim. But fortunately, people can at least be saved by an antidote. Animals, on the other hand, cannot be saved. The saw-scaled viper can deal with many creatures, from rodents, birds, and frogs to dangerous spiders. Its diet includes a bunch of creatures, making this snake a truly creepy creature. King Cobra. While the saw-scaled viper is extremely dangerous to humans, the king cobra is extremely dangerous to other animals, including snakes. But it's also extremely dangerous for humans. There's no doubt it's the longest venomous snake on the planet, the venom of which can kill a person in just 15 minutes. But in fact, cases of death from a bite of the king cobra are rare. First, the snake is very patient and does not attack immediately, and secondly, it likes someone else more. For example, snakes. It's other snakes that form the basis of the diet of the king cobra. For this, it got its scientific Latin name, which translates as snake eater. The king cobra swallows snakes mercilessly, fiercely, and often alive. After a proper satiation, the king cobra can forget about food for several months. But it's dangerous not only for its relatives. The king cobra can compete with other creatures, for example with turkeys and chickens on some Indian farms. What's interesting, sometimes birds repel the king cobra attacks. Also, king cobras sort things out with monitor lizards. They can neutralize the little ones without much difficulty, but the huge ones, like the Komodo dragons I've already told you about, are too big for them. Alligator snapping turtle. This turtle is called the alligator snapping one for a reason. Its teeth are truly like those of an alligator. See for yourself how this reptile uses its teeth. In the blink of an eye, it can bite anything in half. Watermelon and pineapple, corn and carrots. It can tear off a piece of an apple and even bite through a closed soda can. Here, it even ruined the phone in no time, though it's not clear why people gave it a smartphone. But anyway, the point's clear. You shouldn't put your finger in this turtle's mouth. It'll bite it off in no time. It deservedly got its name. In addition, the turtle is also quite aggressive. It can attack people itself, and it's better not to put anything under its jaws. However, people are not as interesting to it as you might think. Still, its diet consists of aquatic animals. First of all, fish. It hunts them quite effectively and interestingly. The turtle lies on the bottom with its mouth open and puts out a worm-like tip of its tongue, colored bright pink. The wriggling worm serves as bait for the fish, which swim up trying to grab it and immediately get caught in the powerful jaws of the turtle. Although the jaws of the alligator snapping turtle are truly powerful, they do not compare to the jaws and teeth of the next animal of this episode, the saltwater crocodile. This giant is also called the sea crocodile, or just salty. Yes, unlike its relatives, it feels good in saltwater, can also live in freshwater, and spend time on the shore. In general, only birds are safe, because the saltwater monster eats everyone else without hesitation. Incredible size of more than 16 feet in length, weight of more than a ton, the most powerful bite in the animal world, thick skin, and insane aggression make this reptile the most dangerous on the planet. The saltwater crocodile can devour a chicken, and in an hour it can deal with a pig. The next day it can attack a kangaroo, and in the evening it can fight with a tiger. On the third day, a shark can be beaten, which the giant will eat entirely. And in another day, the crocodile can engage in a fight with its congener, and then go scare people. Literally, all water bodies in Southeast Asia are dangerous because these crocodiles are masters of camouflage and attack. You never know where this monster will be waiting and when it will attack. Gila monster. This American lizard has terrified not only animals but also humans for centuries. Long ago, Native Americans believed that the Gila monster was so toxic and dangerous that its breath could kill a person or infect them with a serious disease. Of course, this isn't true, but Gila monsters are still very dangerous. At the very least, these monsters are dangerous to animals. The Gila monster can easily deal with many animals. For example, it can eat a rabbit. This is its favorite dish. Also, Gila monsters eat mice and squirrels, engage in battles with dogs, and can even face a venomous snake without fear. However, this monster is not particularly voracious. It eats no more than 10 times a year, most of the time digesting its food as if it were a snake. It won't eat a human, but it can bite one. The bite can be fatal, but the good news is that Gila monsters are slow enough so you can have time to spot them and easily get away from them even on foot. The fact that many reptiles are extremely dangerous is known to all of you, but this isn't all that can be told about them. For example, did you know that reptiles have a third eye? And what's it for? Which reptiles shoot venom? And how does the ambient temperature affect the sex of reptiles? Stay tuned to find out this and more. How do reptiles inject their venom into their prey? Of course, they bite it. Everyone knows that. You've all heard about the third eye, that very mysterious symbol of conspiracy. But the third eye is not such a mystery because many reptiles have it. For example, Tatara lizards. And no, that doesn't mean that these lizards are reptilioids. Third eye is sensitive to light and allows the cold-blooded reptiles not to overheat and not to freeze. After all, reptiles don't regulate their body temperature themselves. It depends on the environment. Temperature, in general, plays an important role in the life of reptiles. Even the sex of the creature depends on it. Take crocodiles, for example. If the ambient temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit and below, a female will be born. If it's 91 degrees Fahrenheit and above, a male will be born. If the values average, both females and males in equal proportion can hatch. And finally, let's talk a little about the eyes. The shape of the pupil in reptiles varies. For example, in turtles, the pupil is round and looks like a hole. Nocturnal snakes and crocodiles have a vertical pupil. Some snakes have a horizontal pupil, but some geckos have the most incredible pupil of all reptiles. In some species, the pupil shrinks to form a series of holes, one above the other. It reminds me of a keyhole. Which of these creatures scared you the most? Let me know in the comments. Next, I'll tell you about the most dangerous Amazon monsters caught on camera. Giant black and white tarantula. This is exactly the kind of spider that's among the night hunters. However, our today's protagonist is not as simple as the others. It clearly stands out due to its aggressive behavior, in which few creatures will be equal to it. The funny thing is that it's not easy to respond to aggression in the same way. After all, the giant black and white tarantula can reach 12 inches in length, together with its legs, and this is not insignificant. In addition, the appearance of these spiders is intimidating, and also they have a painful sting. The basic diet of most other spiders consists of insects, while the giant black and white tarantula has a specific taste. It prefers to eat all kinds of small rodents. Speaking of how exactly it eats, the process of eating is as follows. The spider pierces its prey with 0.7-inch long venomous teeth and injects a dose of neuroparalyzing venom, from which the prey loses the ability to resist and to bite back. The next step is a matter of technique. The spider can safely dispose of the body of the prey and eat it slowly. However, even such an aggressive, orderly, and dangerous spider will prove totally powerless during an encounter with army or driver ants. This is the real destructive power of Amazonia. The ants get their name, as it's not difficult to guess, for their wandering lifestyle. They travel through the forests of South America and do not create any permanent dwellings. Much more interesting, in their opinion, is to live in so-called temporary camps, places where ants group together and from where they make deliberate attacks on others. By the way, some may now be thinking, how do these creatures carry offspring if they're forever moving from point to point? The answer is self-explanatory. They take all their offspring with them. No matter how you look at it, ants are tough guys. Plus, there are a lot of them. During their hikes and attacks, army ants see no barriers. It doesn't matter what's in front of them – a forest, a river, a swamp, or anything else. In any case, they'll get where they want to go. And all those who get in their way will fall under the attack of the Spartans of the insect world. The fact is that each of these ants is very strong. They inflict extremely painful bites, somewhat reminiscent of a wasp bite. In extreme cases, their venom can cause a person to go into shock, But army ants target smaller preys, those they can eat. When a scout spots potential prey, it sends signals to its congeners using a gland on its belly. Thousands of companions respond to its call and immediately attack the prey. What happens next is very cruel. The prey is literally butchered, and in this ugly form, dragged to the camp where everyone can feed on it. After all these stories, one doesn't want to go to the Amazon region at all, as if this is the very place that's worth going around for hundreds of miles. But don't jump to conclusions. Maybe when you learn about some other dangerous places, the Amazon and its fauna will seem the earthly heaven to you. It's about these other places, by the way, that we will now talk about. There is such a place as Snake Island. By the way, there are even two. But now we'll talk about the island, which is located in Brazil. If someone is flying over it, it's likely that the following thoughts will pop in their head. Why are there no tourists there? Everything around is so green, so fresh, and so beautiful. Great scenery, pictures like in the movies. It's just kind of idle. Fortunately for those who, having not read about this island in books, decide to go to it, everything is not so rosy there. The fact is that it's uninhabitable, in the literal sense of the word. For humans, of course, because the island is crawling with snakes. They're literally everywhere. In the trees, under the bushes, on the road. The only thing missing is that it'll rain snakes there. And it would be fine if some harmless snakes would live there that don't want to be aggressive and just need to eat food but nothing more. But no, the so-called golden lanceheads live on the Snake Island. These are extremely venomous creatures which, however, do not need to use their venom. You'd think that'd be a good thing, wouldn't you? But if you think a little better, it doesn't seem so. After all, the venom is infused in their bodies and thus becomes much more toxic and dangerous. The Arctic. If you think the most dangerous places are jungles and islands like this, then what do you say about places beyond a polar circle? These are very beautiful places, every video of which is mesmerizing and interesting to all people. But there's something there that doesn't allow us to walk quietly in the snow and admire the views. Or rather, someone. I'm talking about cute-looking polar bears, which in fact can turn out to be the largest in the world and at the same time terribly dangerous. They can weigh over 1,500 pounds and are 8.2 feet long. These creatures hunt on seals, also feed on whale carcasses, and have been known to attack walruses. It all depends on their degree of hunger and mood. As many verified sources say, attacks on humans are rather the exception to the rule, something that happens extremely rarely. In general, they occur more out of fear or some kind of provocation. Nevertheless, attacks on humans increase as animals spend more time ashore due to melting sea ice and as human activity increases in their habitat. Well, if you listen to who the polar bear easily deals with, it's not hard to guess that a person for it will be something like a snack, in the style of, I had a snack and didn't pay attention at all. Colombia. Colombia is like another world full of completely different values, a world with its own features. However, there's someone there you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. Never go into their tropical forest on the Pacific coast, because a frog lives there. No, I'm not kidding right now. There really is a dangerous frog there. So much so, in fact, that it's the most poisonous vertebrate in the entire world. The golden poison frog is so dangerous that the native Embera tribesmen use its poison to lubricate their own spearheads and arrows. One frog has enough batrachotoxin to kill 10 adults at once. Moreover, it's dangerous to even touch this creature and be where it itself has recently run. After all, this frog's entire skin, its entire body, is full of poison. Wherever you touch it, wherever you step, you will always be under the influence of the toxin. Because of this, predators that dare to attack this creature die. That's it for today. What animal surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.